The whiskey hit the glass with a soft, clean sound, like a coin dropped into a deep well. Lamplight warmed the amber as it rose, steady and calm. Martha Cunningham's hand did not shake. Not once. Not even when the saloon went so quiet you could hear the oil lamp's wick whisper as it burned. The Lucky Dollar smelled like frontier nights always did when cold settled in. Old smoke. Wet wool drying near the stove. Stale beer soaked into floorboards that had seen too many boots and not enough mercy. A thin stew simmered in the back, trying its best to turn hunger into comfort. Outside, October air pressed against the windows like a warning. Then the door opened, and cold came in first. It carried dust, horse sweat, and the sharp bite of rain far away. After it came a sound that made men stiffen without thinking. Spurs. Not the loose jingle of a tired ranch hand, and not the playful clink of a gambler. These spurs were measured, heavy, and sure. 3 sets. 3 men. No one reached for a gun. No one cleared a throat. Even the piano player stopped mid-chord, hands hovering as if he had forgotten what music was for. Martha set the bottle down with care, not hard, just enough to remind the room she still owned her counter. The 3 men stood in the doorway a moment, letting their eyes adjust. The youngest stepped in too fast, eager and unsettled. The middle one followed, loud in his body even before he spoke. The eldest came last, tall and slow, moving like the whole room belonged to him already. The lamp caught an old scar on his face, running from his left eye down toward his jaw. It looked like a past that had survived on purpose. Martha kept wiping the bar with a cloth that had long stopped being clean. Her motion stayed unhurried, like she had all the nights in the world. Behind her, the bottles stood in neat rows, labels faced forward, glass washed, order built by a woman who refused to let life stay messy. The men spread out the way wolves did without talking about it. The youngest drifted toward the side wall, eyes scanning exits and faces. The middle one hovered near the card table, like he might sit or flip it. The eldest walked straight to the bar. People made space without realizing they moved. He leaned forward slightly, his smile polite, in the way trouble tried to sound. "Well now," he said, voice smooth. "This must be the Lucky Dollar." "It is," Martha said. "I heard you serve the finest whiskey this side of the Missouri." "I serve what people pay for." From behind him, the middle brother laughed, sharp and wrong in the quiet. "Paying customers," he repeated, like the words amused him. The eldest kept his eyes on Martha, testing her like a river he planned to cross. "And what do you charge?" "2 bits a glass, 5 for the bottle." The youngest shifted. His holster creaked, small and nervous. He did not like stillness. Stillness made it hard to guess where danger lived. The middle brother stepped closer, voice loud on purpose. "That ain't very neighborly. We've been riding hard. We're thirsty, and our pockets are light." No one smiled at that. No one played along. Martha looked at him just long enough to make him feel seen, then looked back at the eldest, because he was the one that mattered. "The Lucky Dollar stays open by being neighborly," she said, "and by staying in business." The eldest's eyes narrowed a fraction. "You run this place alone, Mrs. Cunningham?" Martha did not offer her first name. Folks who meant no harm did not need it. Folks who did not deserve it. "That's a lot of work for one woman," he said. "It is." A pause settled. The lamp crackled. In the kitchen, a floorboard sighed like the building itself was holding its breath. The eldest watched Martha's hands, looking for a tremble, a crack. There was none. Then he straightened and spoke loud enough for the whole saloon. "Tell you what, we'll have 3 glasses since you're so particular about business. And since we're weary travelers, you'll extend a little frontier hospitality." It was not a request. It was the shape of one. Martha looked down at the counter where 3 clean glasses already waited, spaced evenly, like she had measured them. Her fingers reached back without hurry, like she knew every inch of her own world. She took down a bottle that did not look special. Plain glass. Warm amber inside. Honest as sunrise. She set it on the bar and poured. The whiskey ran smooth, filling each glass to the same line. The sound of it, steady and controlled, cut through the room sharper than a curse. "Drink up," Martha said, voice even. "It's on the house." They drank like men who expected nothing from it. The eldest took his in one slow swallow, eyes still on Martha. The middle brother smacked his lips and let out a pleased breath. The youngest hesitated just long enough to earn a sideways look, then drank too, because he feared being called a boy more than he feared the unknown. The eldest leaned an elbow on the bar. "Best I've had in a while." "That's so," Martha said. Spurs scraped, boots settled. The middle brother claimed a chair near the card table like he owned it. The room folded smaller around them. The piano stayed silent. Cards lay forgotten. Even the fire seemed to burn lower. Martha poured again when the eldest nodded. Frank began talking, loud and proud, naming towns and bank jobs like they were medals. Cole listened, eyes drifting just a little, not enough to be obvious, enough to be felt. Jesse's fingers tightened around his glass. His knuckles went pale. "This whiskey's hitting me kind of fast," Jesse said. "Drink some water," Martha told him, calm as if he were any customer who had taken one sip too many. Jesse tried to set his glass down and missed by an inch. He laughed weakly, then stopped when he saw Cole flexing his hand like it no longer belonged to him. Cole pushed his glass away. Then the first chair hit the floor. Jesse's knees folded like they forgot what they were meant to do. He clawed at the table edge, fingers slipping, and he landed hard on his side with a breathless sound that was not quite a cry. The whole saloon flinched. Frank took one step toward him and staggered. His palms slapped the table. His fingers spread, then curled slowly as if the wood beneath him could not be trusted. "The hell?" he rasped. Cole stood, but his balance faltered. He reached for his gun out of instinct and missed the grip. For the first time since he walked in, his eyes searched the room without confidence. His gaze snapped to Martha, anger trying to cover fear. "Something ain't right," he said. Martha stepped back from the bar, not fast, just enough to make space, like a woman stepping aside from a falling beam. Frank crashed into the card table, sending cards and coins skittering across the floor. Jesse made a wet, broken sound. Cole's breath came in short bursts, like it was being dragged through thorns. Cole stared at Martha, the scar on his face looking suddenly less like power and more like old luck running out. "What did you do?" he demanded. Martha met his gaze, steady as lamplight. "Yes," she said, voice quiet and flat. "I did." Outside, the wind pressed against the walls. Inside, the Lucky Dollar held its breath, and Martha stood behind her bar like she had been waiting for this moment a long time. Cole tried to crawl, but his arm gave out. His cheek struck the floor and he tasted dust, old spilled liquor and blood where he had bitten his tongue. Frank lay twisted near the card table, one arm bent wrong beneath him. Jesse's eyes rolled back, whites stark in the lamplight. The room smelled sour now, sharp with fear, and something final that could not be talked away. Martha did not run. She did not cry out. She watched the three men the way a rancher watched a fence post in a storm, waiting to see if it would hold or snap. Her hands stayed steady, but her steadiness did not mean she felt nothing. Beneath her ribs, an old ache woke up like a wound remembering itself. Cole dragged himself along the bar, breath coming in panicked bursts. "You don't know who we are," he rasped. "You don't know what you've done." "I know exactly," Martha said. Frank tried to laugh, but it broke into a choke. His legs buckled completely. He went down hard, body striking the floor with a dull thud that made a few patrons wince. Jesse sobbed, the sound raw and unguarded. "Please," Jesse whispered. "Please, I don't want to die." Quote, the word hung in the air, naked and small. It hit Martha like a bruise she already knew was coming. She did not step closer, but she did not turn away either. Mercy was not always gentleness. Sometimes it was simply watching and not lying about what was happening. Cole's eyes searched her face like a man looking for a softer part he could press into a bargain. "You think this ends it?" He spat, though the words came weaker now. "You think someone won't come looking?" Martha said nothing. She watched his knees buckle. He slid down the bar until he sat hard on the floor, back against the wood, breath rasping in and out. His anger faded into a kind of disbelief, then into something worse. Fear without a target. Jesse's sobbing turned into shallow gasps. Frank went still. Cole lasted longer, chest heaving, lips moving like he was trying to speak a name without giving it power. Then his breath left him in a long, rattling sigh and did not return. The silence that followed was complete. No gunshots, no shouting, only the oil lamp's soft hiss and the stove's steady crackle. 3 dead men lay where they fell. The Lucky Dollar looked the same, and that was the strangest part of all. Martha exhaled slowly. Then she crossed the room and closed the door. Not fast, not loud. She set the latch with care, sealing the saloon against the night that had already taken enough. The click of metal sounded more final than a pistol shot. She turned back to the room. "All right," she said. It was not comfort. It was not a command. It was simply the next step spoken out loud. Old Ben Parker moved first. He rose slow, joints stiff, face calm in a way that came from living too long in places where the wrong men often lived longer than they should. He did not look surprised. He only looked tired. "I'll fetch Silas," Ben said. Martha nodded. "Use the back." Ben did not ask why. He slipped past the bodies without looking at their faces and disappeared through the rear door. Others stirred. Chairs were set right. A woman wiped her hands on her skirt, though she had touched nothing. Someone gathered scattered coins and set them neatly on the card table as if order itself could keep the dead from noticing they were gone. Martha knelt beside Cole first. She worked with quick, practiced care. His gun came free with a soft rasp, loaded, well kept. A man who believed preparation made him untouchable. She set it beneath the bar. Then she took Frank's weapon. Then Jesse's knives. She wrapped them all in canvas. No one stopped her. No one asked what she planned to do with them. They did not want the answers. Outside, the street lay quiet under moonlight. 3 horses stood at the hitching post, heads low, shifting restlessly, unaware they were already orphaned. Martha brought out a mop and bucket. The water went dark almost at once. She scrubbed the floor where blood tried to settle into the grain. There were stains that never left. But this one could, if she did not let it take root. As she worked, memory tried to rise. Another mess. Another night. Years ago. She pressed her jaw tight and pushed it down. Not now. The back door opened again. Silas Morton stepped in, hat in hand, his thin face set in solemn lines. He smelled faintly of cold earth and the quiet work of ending. Ben came in behind him, already shrugging off his coat. Silas took in the scene with one slow sweep of his eyes. He did not gape. He did not ask for a story. He only nodded once as if he had expected this sooner or later. "Trail?" Silas asked. "Yes," Martha said. "North side," Ben added. "Looks better that way." Silas considered, then nodded. "Heart trouble," he murmured. "Bad liquor. Happens." Martha did not reply. She kept scrubbing until the boards looked like boards again. They worked without hurry. Silas and Ben lifted the bodies with the practiced care of men who had done this too many times to waste words. Canvas was pulled up to cover faces. Knots tied. Weight shifted into a wagon that rolled up quiet, wheels loud on the empty street. When the wagon pulled away, the Lucky Dollar felt suddenly too large. People began to leave one by one. Hats were tipped without meeting Martha's eyes. Voices stayed low. Doors shut softly. By the time the last patron stepped out, only the lamp and the stove kept Martha company. She dumped the dirty water in the alley and watched it soak into the ground, like it had always belonged there. When she returned inside, she stood behind the bar with both hands on the counter, breathing slow until the ache beneath her ribs settled into something she could carry. Bootsteps crossed the street outside. Martha lifted her gaze and saw Sheriff Tom Bradshaw standing half in shadow. He had not knocked. He had not come close. He watched the saloon the way a man watched a fire he could not afford to feed. Their eyes met through the glass. Bradshaw did not tip his hat. He did not move. Neither did Martha. For a long moment, Redemption Creek held its breath again. Only this time, the silence was not empty. It was packed tight with things no one was ready to say out loud. Then Bradshaw crossed the street. He stopped at the door. He listened, as if Wood could confess. He knocked once. Martha opened the door. "Evening, Mrs. Cunningham," he said. "Sheriff," she replied. He stepped inside, and the door closed behind him, with a quiet weight that made the lamp seem to burn lower. "I need to ask you a few questions," Bradshaw said, voice careful. Martha nodded, and in her calm, the whole room seemed to understand something new. The danger was not just what had happened tonight. The danger was what would happen next, now that the law had finally decided to arrive. Bradshaw did not sit. He stood near the doorway, hat in his hands, as if he wanted to look polite while he tried to decide what kind of man he was going to be. The Lucky Dollar smelled like it always had, but the air felt different now, thinner, like the room itself knew it had crossed a line. "Mind if we talk in the back?" he asked. Martha nodded and led him to the small ledger room behind the saloon. She closed the door and turned the key. The click sounded louder in the quiet. Bradshaw leaned against the wall, eyes moving over her face, her hands, the stillness in her posture. "I heard about 3 men," he said. "Riders. Found on the North Road." "That's what I heard too," Martha replied. He watched her for a long moment. "Silas has heart trouble, bad liquor maybe. Says look natural." "Men die natural all the time," Martha said. Bradshaw breathed out slowly. "That's true." He paused, then said what had been sitting in his chest. "But you know as well as I do that sometimes the word natural is just what people say when they want to sleep." Martha did not flinch. She did not defend herself. She did not give him a fight to hold on to. That was what made him shift his weight like the floor felt less steady. "I'm not blind," he said. "I've been sheriff 8 months. In that time, I've watched hard men pass through this town. Some leave, some don't. Every time one doesn't, folks breathe easier afterward." He swallowed, almost ashamed of the truth. "Feelings don't hold up in court." "No," Martha agreed. Bradshaw pulled a folded paper from inside his coat and set it on the table between them. "Marshal's office sent this," he said. "Names. Wanted men. Thought you should see the kind of people riding these roads." Quote. Martha looked at the paper but did not touch it. "I already know," she said. Bradshaw's jaw tightened. "That's what worries me." He paced once, then stopped. "I could tear this place apart," he said. "Look for poison, look for hiding places. Drag every soul in this town into a statement." He held her gaze. "But I'm being pushed to find something because those men mattered to someone with reach." Martha's voice stayed quiet. "And what will you do?" Bradshaw stared at the floor for a second as if the boards might offer him guidance. Then he looked up. "I have to decide what kind of lawman I am," he said. "The kind that enforces the book no matter what it breaks, or the kind that understands why towns like this stop waiting for the book." Martha rested her hands on the table. The ache beneath her ribs pulsed once, sharp and old. "I never asked you to carry my choices," she said. "No," Bradshaw admitted. "You didn't." He stopped pacing. "Here's what the evidence tells me," he said. 3 men rode too hard, drank too much, and 1 or more had a heart that couldn't keep up. No sign of a struggle. No witnesses willing to say a word. No proof of anything else." He paused. "And a saloon owner who has never once given me a reason to doubt her word." Martha's eyes stayed on his. "Then that's what you'll write." Bradshaw nodded slowly. "I'll finish my report in the morning," he said. "After that, it won't be mine anymore." He opened the door and stepped back into the saloon. Before leaving, he turned once more, his voice lower. "You should know," he said. "If I let this go, I won't get another chance. Not like this." Martha's reply came steady, but it cost her something. "Then let it go." Bradshaw held her gaze like he was trying to memorize it. Then he tipped his hat and walked out into the night. Morning did not soften the news. It sharpened it. By sunrise, Redemption Creek was already full of rumor. Jackson Cole, the banker's guest, a landowner with guards and money, was dead. Some said his heart gave out. Some blamed travel and drink. A few swore they heard raised voices before the undertaker's wagon rolled. Most people kept their thoughts small and careful, because powerful men did not die without someone powerful caring. Martha opened the Lucky Dollar like she always did. She served coffee to men who wanted warmth more than answers. She wiped the bar until it shined. She spoke in an easy voice, smiled when expected, and kept her eyes calm. In the afternoon, Bradshaw returned. He did not knock. He stepped inside and let the door close softly behind him. It was fuller than usual, drawn by fear. Cups rattled. Men spoke low. When Bradshaw removed his hat, a hush followed him like a shadow. "Mrs. Cunningham," he said. "Sheriff." He did not take her to the back room this time. He sat at the end of the bar closest to the door, like he might need to leave quickly. Martha poured him coffee and set it down without asking for payment. He wrapped his hands around the cup and stared into it like it was something he could read. "I finished the report," he said. "And?" Martha asked. "It reads the way reports are supposed to read," he replied. "Clear, orderly, boring." He took a sip, grimaced at the strength, then drank again. "Jackson Cole's death will be recorded as natural causes, heart failure aggravated by exertion and drink. No foul play indicated." The words settled between them like a door closing. Martha felt the ache beneath her ribs ease into something hollow. She did not celebrate. She did not relax. She only nodded once. "They'll file it," Bradshaw continued. "Men with better desks and softer hands will skim it. They'll nod. They'll move on." He looked around the saloon, the worn boards, the faces that had learned to survive by staying quiet. "Redemption Creek stays quiet for now." "For now," Martha repeated. Bradshaw glanced up. "Catherine Reeves left this morning," he said. Martha's hand paused for half a heartbeat, then kept wiping. "Did she?" "Paid her bill. Took the early coach south. Didn't leave a forwarding address." "She wouldn't," Martha said. Bradshaw studied her face and found no crack. "She came here for justice," he said. "Yes," Martha replied. "And she left," he said slowly, "with what she needed." Quote, Martha met his eyes. "That's the trouble," she said. "Justice does not look the same depending on where you're standing." Bradshaw let out a tired breath. "I won't ask you questions you don't need to answer," he said, "and I won't hear things I can't afford to know." Martha inclined her head. "I wouldn't insult you by pretending otherwise." He stood and placed coins on the bar for the coffee anyway. He put on his hat, then paused at the door. "There will come a time when this won't work anymore," he said, "when patterns don't stay hidden." Martha's voice was quiet. "Nothing stays hidden forever." Bradshaw nodded once. Then he left. The Lucky Dollar breathed again, but the town did not. Not truly. A powerful man had died, and power did not like being reminded that it could bleed. Days passed. Then weeks. Then the West kept moving forward the way it always did, dragging law and progress behind it, like a stubborn wagon. Trains came closer. Papers arrived, with stamps that mattered. New men passed through, men who asked too many questions and carried notebooks instead of spurs. Martha noticed the shift before anyone else. She always had. One night, long after the saloon closed, she went down into the cellar beneath the floorboards. The entrance stayed hidden behind a false wall, the steps narrow and familiar under her feet. The lantern light threw long shadows across shelves, lined with glass vials. She stood there for a long time, listening to the quiet. The cellar smelled of earth and bitter herbs and careful secrets. Her hands hovered over her notes, the writing tight and steady, like a mind trying to keep order in a world that refused it. She thought of Thomas, her husband, and the badge he had believed in. She thought of Catherine Reeves and the way grief could turn into resolve. She thought of the men who rode into town and never rode out, and how the town slept easier after. Then she did something she had never done before. She picked up a small vial and held it up to the lantern light. Clear, innocent-looking, patient. Her fingers tightened around it, and for the first time in a long time her hand trembled, not from fear of getting caught, from the weight of knowing she had become the kind of justice the frontier demanded, When the law arrived too late, upstairs the saloon creaked as the wind pushed against it. Far off, a train whistle sounded, thin and lonely, a reminder that the world was changing whether Redemption Creek wanted it or not. Martha closed her eyes and breathed out slowly, because she understood something now that no one in town would ever say out loud. Tonight had not been the end. It had only been the moment Redemption Creek chose the kind of silence it would live with from now on.